snowstorm is coming, and here I sit in my self-built villa in the countryside, cooking mutton hot pot. Meanwhile, my ex-wife and her pretty boy are huddled together, shivering from the cold, eating poisonous steamed buns to comfort themselves.
If we have money, we can buy anything.
That's when I think of it. Money. The memory of being hacked to death by him flashes in my mind. If you have money, buy your own life first. Then talk about everything else. I was reborn and returned, just in time to meet Susan, who was screaming that she wanted a divorce. I suppressed the surging hatred and agreed without hesitation. She was taken aback by how easily I let go and gave up the fight. She couldn't believe it, asking again and again.
Are you really willing to divorce me? Stop playing tricks.
I glanced at the time. There were only 10 days left before the natural disaster strikes. Let's go to the Civil Affairs Bureau right now, I said. On the way there, I looked at Susan sitting beside me, pride glowing on her face. Her brows and eyes couldn't hide the smug joy she felt. I fought the urge to kill her right there. The memory of him picking up an axe and rushing at me when he was hungry and cold was still fresh in my mind. The excruciating pain from that day lingered, as if still imprinted on my soul. In this life, I swear, he will pay with blood. At the property division, I only asked for all the family savings, which totaled $28,000, and the car. Susan agreed easily and even had the nerve to ask me for credit, saying,
"Look how kind I am, leaving you with a clean slate."
I smiled sarcastically, pretending not to know the house wasn't for rent. Did you give it away? I thought. Susan believed I was clueless, unaware that she had won a lottery jackpot of $15 million and was trying to force me out to claim the prize on her own. In my previous life, I had no idea and was still desperately trying to save the marriage. It wasn't until she brought her pretty boy home that I learned the truth. The wife I thought was loyal had long been involved with another man. The natural disaster came, and a raging snowstorm engulfed us. The three of us were stuck in the same house with limited supplies. They not only took my last loaf of bread, but also forced me to go out in the extreme cold to scavenge for more. But I couldn't tolerate the abuse any longer. I picked up the axe and struck hard. As I lay dying, I saw their eyes glimmering with hunger. I was no longer a person to them, I was fresh meat. I didn't care about the house in the city. In the apocalypse, buildings become more of a target than a shelter. That house? Let it be Susan's coffin in this life. After submitting the divorce papers, I rushed home to pack my things. While I was sorting my clothes, especially my winter clothes with thick cotton, Susan arrived. She couldn't hide her joy. I guessed she had finally received the $15 million lottery prize, but I ignored her and kept packing.
Goodbye, Thomas.
She sneered.
Take your rags and go back to the countryside. I'm going out to play.
As soon as she left, I tore through the house. She had taken all the winter clothes, just like in my previous life. She was planning to go to Sonia's beaches with her pretty boy again, only to return home to the freezing cold with no proper clothes. Back then, they had taken their frustration out on me. I remembered nearly freezing to death because I had no proper clothing. While I was cleaning up, my eyes fell on a familiar axe, the same one from my past. The one used for chopping bones. I hadn't expected it to become my fatal weapon in my previous life. I stared at it for a long moment, then calmly set it on the table. Finally, I took one last look around the house. It appeared unchanged, but felt empty now. I made sure to secure a few key hiding spots with real-time monitoring systems before leaving. With everything packed, I drove through the night, heading back to my rural home on the outskirts of the city. When I finally saw my parents, I burst into tears. In my previous life, when the power and internet went out, I hadn't been able to contact them for the final time. I don't know if they survived the natural disaster. When my parents saw me crying, they panicked and quickly asked what was going on. I hesitated for a moment, then decided to tell them everything: the rebirth, the natural disaster, and the dangers ahead. My mother burst into tears while my father looked furious. I lit a cigarette, feeling frustrated. Now is not the time to talk about this, I said angrily. We need to renovate the house and stock up on food and supplies. My dad stubbed out a cigarette and nodded.
I'll do whatever you need,
he said firmly. To improve the stability of the house, I called in an engineering team to do a full renovation. The building was strengthened, and we replaced the old windows with the strongest triple-layer insulated glass. We also installed 5 huge solar panels on the roof, covering it completely. With this setup, we could generate our own electricity when the power goes out. There would be a heating source too. In the countryside, people usually rely on gas for heating. But when the gas is cut off, radiators become useless, and the house would get cold quickly. I remembered an old coal-burning stove we had in storage, so I dug it out. It hadn't been used in years and was covered in rust and dust. My dad laughed when he saw me struggling with it.
What are you doing with that? We can't even buy coal anymore. Even if the stove works, it's useless without fuel. Don't worry, I'll get something better.
That afternoon, my dad came back with a small truck filled with 5 brand-new pellet heating stoves and hundreds of bags of pellet fuel. The pellet stoves were perfect. They could boil water, cook food, and the fuel was durable, environmentally friendly, and safe. We placed 1 stove in each of the 2 bedrooms upstairs, 1 in the living room, and 2 on the 3rd floor for extra fuel storage. The first floor, buried under 10 meters of snow, would be uninhabitable, so we used it as a warehouse. By the time the workers finished installing the exhaust pipes, night had fallen. Exhausted, the 3 of us hurriedly finished dinner and went to bed, resting for the challenges of the next day. The following day, we split into 3 groups. My dad went to the nearby market to buy fresh meat: pork, lamb, beef tenderloins, and ducks. I drove to the large supermarkets to stock up on consumables, daily necessities, and fast food, while my mother stayed home to pick fruits and vegetables from the garden. It was September, and we were lucky to have a bountiful harvest of produce. At the supermarket, I bought over 10 soft, warm, electric duvets, blankets, long down jackets with the highest down filling, and the lightest, most expensive winter clothes. I also stocked up on essentials like tissues, disinfectant, and various household products. These had long shelf lives and wouldn't go to waste. I filled my shopping cart with fast food, just in case we couldn't use the stove. These items would still be able to keep us fed. After leaving the supermarket, I passed by a labor supply store and bought military coats, waterproof rain boots, down gloves, and quilted masks. According to my predictions, if we survived the natural disaster, the weather would stay freezing for a while. We'd need to produce and melt large amounts of snow to get clean water. Everything I bought would come in handy for that. Driving an off-road vehicle with limited capacity, I made 3 trips back and forth to bring all the supplies home. My dad also returned with a load of meat, not just pork, lamb, and beef, but also chickens, ducks, bonefish, live shrimp, and crabs. He bought so much that we needed 5 rented commercial freezers to store it all. Although the extreme cold during the snowstorm would turn the first floor into a natural ice house, we still needed freezers to properly store the meat in the short term. The shopping trip was over, and we began helping my mother pick out fruit. My father took advantage of this free time to stock up on wholesale condiments and oil, while I filled an entire cart with noodles to bring back. After we were done, I turned on my phone to see what was happening in the outside world. As I scrolled through my social feed, I was met with a photo of my ex-wife, cheek to cheek with a pretty girl. They looked like they were having a fantastic time in Sanya, staying at a luxury hotel that cost thousands a night and feasting on seafood. I gave them a sincere thumbs up, thinking, play, have fun, enjoy the last happy times of your life. I then took a relaxing bath. Suddenly, a chilling thought hit me, making the hairs on my body stand up. There's no water in a snowstorm. Not only is there no electricity, but the water pipes freeze and the water tanks crack. We'd have to rely on melting, accumulated snow to quench our thirst. The temperature would be too low for fast melting, and the snow itself would be filthy, mixed with dust and sand. In my previous life, I remembered the pretty boy drank pure mineral water, while I had to settle for snow water. Drinking it left me with severe abdominal pain and unbearable diarrhea. I couldn't keep drinking it, and the thought of enduring that again terrified me. There were now less than 5 days left before the natural disaster struck, as it had in my previous life. I quickly dried my hair and rushed to find my dad to see if we could solve this issue. My mother chased after me with a towel, trying to dry my hair, warning that if I didn't dry it properly, I'd get a headache. When I explained my concerns, my dad just laughed. It turned out he had already thought of this issue and had reached out to an uncle who worked at a factory. He'd arranged to have 3 custom-made stainless steel water tanks prepared. Not only would they keep the water warm, but they were also crafted from durable 304 stainless steel. When I saw them, they took up most of the yard.
The water in these tanks will last our family of 3 for more than 6 months. If we ration it, it could even last a whole year.
He also showed me a large water purifier he had bought in case the water ever got contaminated. If only I had thought this carefully in my previous life, I would have thought to myself. As I considered everything I could remember from before, my parents suddenly thought of something. The corn in the field. It hadn't been harvested yet. The corn wasn't fully dry or ready for harvest, but if the heavy snowfall came, it would ruin the crop. My parents quickly began contacting a harvester to bring in the corn ahead of schedule. Our actions caught the attention of the villagers. They stood on the field, pointing and muttering.
I think you're crazy, harvesting corn this early? It'll take at least 10 days to properly dry. If you harvest it now, it'll get moldy, and no corn dealer will buy it with the humidity that high.
My parents only smiled and said,
It doesn't matter.
Then they kindly warned the others.
This year's weather isn't normal. You might want to bring in your crops early.
The villagers scoffed.
What do you know? There have been rains before. This is nothing new.
My parents just brushed them off, but I couldn't help feeling uneasy. This strange weather could be the beginning of the natural disaster I knew was coming. But then again, if nothing happened as it did in my previous life, it would be a real loss. When I told my parents my concerns, they didn't seem convinced.
If nothing happens, then that's great, but it's worth buying peace of mind.
The next day, the weather shifted dramatically. What had been crisp autumn air after the first fall rain suddenly turned sweltering. The temperature shot up to nearly 40 degrees. All over the country, people were crying out, lamenting how intense the autumn tiger was this year. My heart grew heavier with each passing day. This intense heat had happened before, too. It had been scorching hot for 2 days in my previous life. The familiar signs were all too clear. On the afternoon of the 3rd day, a strong wind suddenly blew, and the temperature dropped sharply. Soon after, a heavy snowstorm followed. I left a comment on a related social media post saying that the weather seemed unusual and suggested people stock up on supplies. But my warning was met with ridicule.
Are you trying to sell supplies or something? Sounds like you've been reading too many doomsday novels.
I felt a bit helpless, eating in this unseasonable heat and hoping my brief reply might catch someone's attention. If anyone took the advice seriously, it could make all the difference. I set my phone aside and got back to work. Time was running out. My dad was busy installing partitions between each floor of the house to reduce space and make heating more efficient. Meanwhile, my mom was bustling around the kitchen, steaming buns, making pancakes, and cooking up dumplings, all prepped to be ready to eat straight from the pot when needed. Time seemed to fly as we rushed to prepare. Then, my phone pinged. The monitoring software alerted me that someone was at my ex-wife's house. I checked and saw it was her and the girl from earlier. They'd returned a day early from their trip, unlike in my previous life. I wasn't sure what prompted the change in their plans, but nothing about them seemed out of the ordinary. They grumbled about the stifling heat and then went to bed, not knowing they'd wake to a world transformed. As expected, the snowstorm hit on the afternoon of September 5th. Watching the heavy snow falling outside the window, I felt a sense of relief. Everything had been arranged just in time. The $28,000 deposit I had saved was now spent, and my parents had also used up tens of thousands of yuan on supplies. We were prepared to endure this. People online were reacting to the strange weather. Some were angry, others were confused, and some had begun to realize something was wrong. They urged others to stock up on supplies, especially as the snow thickened and showed no sign of stopping. By evening, I came out of my room to check what was for dinner, but the living room was empty. I hurried downstairs and found my mother anxiously looking out the door. Visibility was nearly zero in the blizzard, and the snow on the ground made driving difficult. Thankfully, I'd put snow chains on the tires beforehand. Otherwise, getting there would have taken all night. When I finally got back, my dad, who had been almost equally worried about us, looked relieved. He started unloading the car, bringing in farming tools, shovels, sickles, hammers, and even a chainsaw.
These tools aren't just for shoveling snow. In times like these, you have to be prepared. Sometimes people can be as dangerous as the environment.
He also brought a few sacks of persimmons.
These are the crispy persimmons your mom and I love. Picked them from the tree in front of our old house. They're almost ripe, so I gathered them just in time.
I noticed tears in his eyes, possibly from the bitter wind or the memories. Then, from the car, a dog came running out.
He was wandering around outside, and I couldn't leave him behind. From now on, he's part of the family.
"Welcome, Brother Dao," I said with a grin, patting the dog. That night, the wind howled through the cracks in the doors, making a whining noise that kept me awake. When I got up, I noticed the lights on in the living room. My dad was nailing a thick plastic sheet over the windows to block out the wind and keep the warmth inside. "Dad, how's the airtightness of your work?" I joked. "We don't want to get sick from poor ventilation."
I almost forgot to tell you. I had a fresh air system installed when we reinforced the house. No matter how sealed the windows are, the air will stay fresh.
Once again, I marveled at my dad's foresight. I gave him a thumbs up, feeling grateful for everything he had thought of. Seeing that there was nothing else I could do to help, I went back to my room and picked up my phone, ready to surf the internet. Just then, my phone rang, and I saw the caller was my ex-wife, Susan. Irritated, I remembered that she had kept the thick quilt I bought before our divorce. That quilt would have been perfect in this freezing weather. Even the quilt. She had to take even that, I thought. "You act so high and mighty, but you're just a countryman at heart." I was too annoyed to answer, so I hung up. But she kept calling, blasting my phone with notifications, clearly trying to get my attention. Checking the surveillance feed, I saw her on the call, complaining.
Is the air conditioner in this place broken? It's not warm at all.
She sighed dramatically.
All right, baby, maybe the snow will stop tomorrow. Let's just cuddle and try to stay warm, okay?
I shook my head and put the phone down. She's in for a real surprise soon, I thought. My family had stocked up on supplies and prepared our house, but I still felt uneasy. My previous life hadn't given me much time to experience the full extent of the disaster. I didn't know how long it would last this time. All I could do was prepare as much as possible, trying to survive as long as I could. Based on my memories, the snow should pause for a few days starting tomorrow, and then the true disaster would strike. These next couple of days would be critical for stocking up. Just then, my phone dinged, and a message from the system appeared.
Ding. Material collection goal complete. Doomsday warehouse system activated.
I almost laughed in disbelief. A warehouse system? Of course, every reborn person gets one of these. From the name, I guessed it was some kind of storage system, I muttered. "Does this mean I have a special warehouse now?" "Yes," it replied.
This system provides the host with an extra-dimensional storage space. However, other functions are locked until you survive a certain number of days.
So this disaster really will last a long time, I thought grimly. Opening the extra-dimensional space, I realized it was massive, large enough to store all the supplies I could gather. I now had space. All I needed was money. Tomorrow, I'd need to discuss this with my parents. Once this blizzard passed and the skies cleared, I'd have to explain that the warm temperatures were only temporary. The true disaster would arrive in 2 days. Turning to my dad, I said, "Dad, I'm serious. The real trouble is coming soon." He looked at me for a long moment and then nodded.
Son, you're my son and I believe you. Of course I trust you.
Taking advantage of his trust, I told him we still needed to gather more supplies, but I carefully avoided mentioning the system itself. Our biggest obstacle now is money, I thought aloud. Dad grinned and said,
Silly boy, there's always the bank.
Without hesitation, my dad and I headed out. Of course, we went to the bank to apply for a loan, not to rob it. Once we secured the loan, we went straight to the supermarket to buy even more of the essentials we'd stocked up on before. After shopping, we stopped in a quiet spot to eat and drink, loading all the supplies into the system warehouse. I left just one cartful in the back of the car. It felt too strange to drive with an empty vehicle after such a big shopping trip. On our way back, I checked my phone and saw that people online were starting to advocate for stocking up on supplies as well. This time, the responses were less hostile than before. Some were even beginning to agree, though most were still skeptical. I checked the surveillance feed again, watching my ex-wife and her friend, Shanshan. They were bickering.
There's no one to deliver food in this snowstorm.
Susan snapped.
We don't have the cash for all these errands. Just go out and get something so we can eat.
Shanchen sighed.
Why do I have to go? I'm not exactly suited for this weather.
I'm a small woman. I can't go out looking for snow pears. What's wrong with you, a grown man, going out to get some food?
I shook my head at their pettiness, thankful that I was in a much better position. We had what we needed and the sense to keep preparing while they struggled with basic necessities. I knew the real challenges were still ahead, but at least we were ready for them. Once home, my father and I began unloading the supplies. Dad parked the car, and I handled moving everything into the house. As I worked, I heard someone come up behind me and say,
Wow, so much food. Are you guys starting a business?
I turned to see it was Mrs. Wang from next door, whom we all called Aunt Wang. She added with a smirk,
Didn't I tell you this snow would stop soon? You'll be stuck with all this if it clears up.
Before I could respond, she continued.
Oh, by the way, my son wants some snacks. You have so many here. Why not give him some?
I reached into a box, grabbed 2 packs of instant noodles, and handed them to her. Here you go. She looked at me, displeased.
Only 2 packs? Come on, you have so many boxes here. Just give us one whole box. We're neighbors after all.
Aunt Wang had always been shameless, and when she saw I wasn't budging, she actually reached to grab the box herself.
Why are you so stingy? We've been neighbors for so long, and you can't share a little.
I held onto the box firmly. Aunt Wang, I bought this with my own money. I'll decide what I want to give. And just because he's a child doesn't mean I owe him anything. She scoffed.
Don't you know how to respect your elders and love the young? A good person would let the child have it.
I shook my head. Well, I'm not his father, so it's not my responsibility. Aunt Wang's face turned red with anger. Just then, my dad walked up. Smiling, he said,
Ah, Aunt Wang. Bullying my son over a box of instant noodles, are we?
He grinned, clearly enjoying the situation.
Tell you what, Aunt Wang, maybe you're right. Suffering is a blessing. As they say, may you live as long as the East Sea.
Aunt Wang muttered some excuses and, sensing defeat, left empty-handed. Dad chuckled, patting me on the shoulder.
Sometimes, you have to be firm with folks like her.
After the interruption, we managed to bring the rest of the supplies into the house. Most of it went into the warehouse system, while we kept some food in our 3 freezers. That evening, my mother prepared dumplings, and after a hearty meal and a warm shower, I went to bed early, exhausted from the day's work. The next morning, I was woken up by loud voices. Rubbing my eyes, I stepped out of my room and saw some relatives gathered in the living room, talking to my parents. My second uncle was speaking loudly.
I heard you all won the lottery or something. And from what the neighbors say, you've been buying up all kinds of food. You know, I have an 8-year-old and an elderly mother. Life's been tough. Could you lend me some money to get by?
He wasn't the only one. My uncle chimed in.
Yes, and maybe a little loan for me too. My boy wants a basketball, and I'll pay you back in a couple of years.
At this point, I had to step in. Uncle, honestly, our finances have been stretched thin because of all the renovations we've been doing. We had to take out loans ourselves. They didn't seem convinced. One of them said,
Come on, just a small amount. Must have some money to spare.
I shook my head, showing them a loan receipt. It's all in black and white here. We're not as well off as you think. This is all borrowed money. The conversation continued awkwardly, but eventually, they seemed to accept that we weren't in a position to help. It was a relief when they finally left, allowing us to get back to our day in peace. My father muttered under his breath,
There's something strange about this weather. We should stock up on food.
I could overhear one relative saying to another,
Did you hear? Thomas and Susan got divorced. Do you think the whole family has lost it?
They left, and I glanced at my grandfather, who was watching them disappear down the street. After working on the loan information for so long, I barely had any money left. As my relatives left in the cold, I watched their retreating backs, feeling a mix of disappointment and relief. I sighed, hoping they would heed my advice about the weather change. Time passed quickly. By the evening of the next day, the weather took a dramatic turn. Snow began to fall heavily, and suddenly everyone realized the need to stock up on supplies. The supermarket was packed with people scrambling to grab what they could. Meanwhile, I was cozy at home, eating hot pot and watching TV as the snowstorm raged outside. Curious, I clicked on my surveillance camera feed and saw Susan and her friend huddled on the couch, wrapped in blankets. Leftovers sat on their table, and they looked genuinely concerned. Susan said,
We better get to the supermarket quickly. If we're late, everything will be gone.
They were about to leave when a notification popped up on my WeChat. It was from my building's property group. Someone had suggested everyone get supplies together, sharing what they could. Messages filled the group chat, with people sending red envelopes and money transfers to cover their contributions. Susan quickly messaged,
I'll chip in with $42. Please, get as much as possible.
Just as I finished reading the messages, my dad stoked the fire in our stove and the room filled with warmth. Mom handed me some sunflower seeds and my dad made hot tea. I set up the music on my tablet and we all gathered around to play cards. That next morning, I was jolted awake by the sound of my phone buzzing. I opened it and saw it was a message from Susan. Apparently, she was checking in about the supplies she'd been trying to buy. Ait was causing a commotion in the group, but he didn't respond to any messages. Out of curiosity, I accidentally clicked on his profile picture, and his smug, mocking smile filled the screen. This man, known as Big Donkey, had taken control of a large amount of property supplies during the apocalypse in the previous life, becoming a petty tyrant amidst the disaster. Back then, Susan had even asked me to go beg him for food, but things didn't go well. He had an aggressive dog and I barely escaped harm. It was hard to imagine him handing over supplies to Susan willingly in this life. Laughing to myself, I turned off my phone, pulled up my quilt, and went back to sleep. I slept until noon, planning to grab a popsicle, when I was greeted by the mouth-watering aroma of lamb stew. My mother had cooked up a pot of lamb and scorpion hot pot, with tender meat, rich broth, and a spread of vegetables, tofu, and meat rolls. The flavors were incredible, especially when dipped in sesame sauce and chives. As I ate, I noticed my mother sneaking glances at me, lips pursed as if she wanted to say something. "Mom, is there something on your mind?" I asked gently. She hesitated, then said,
"Every time I think about what you told us, about your past life, I feel so sad I can barely sleep. It must have been awful for you back then."
My dad put down his chopsticks and took a sip of his drink.
It hurts me to think we couldn't protect you then. This time, we'll make it right.
Watching my parents worry and blame themselves, I made a silent vow to protect them in this life. And as I thought of all the suffering Susan had caused me, a fresh wave of resentment washed over me. After dinner, I snapped a photo of the steaming hot pot and heavy snow outside, editing it into a 9-square grid. I posted it to my social media, ensuring only Susan could see it. Then, I turned on a movie and settled in for a cozy afternoon. Less than 10 minutes later, Susan sent me a video call invitation. I declined, but my phone rang again immediately. I answered, only to hear Susan's outraged voice.
"Thomas, where are you? How are you eating hot pot while I'm stuck here freezing? You told me to leave, but now you're in the countryside with your family, right?"
Suppressing a laugh, I took a photo of a neatly decorated corner of my home and sent it to him. "Does this look like my family's house to you?" There was a pause, then Susan's tone softened.
"Thomas, I made a mistake. Asking for the divorce was foolish. I was out of my mind. Please, tell me where you are, and I'll come to you. I'm starving here, freezing, and I know you wouldn't just let me die, right?"
I couldn't help but scoff. "Susan, you really have no shame. Isn't your little friend there with you? Why don't you ask him to get you something to eat?"
"Thomas, don't misunderstand. He and I are just friends."
"Save it. Not even a dog would buy your story, Susan," I replied, then hung up the phone. Curious, I clicked on the surveillance feed. Sure enough, Susan was in the middle of kicking his friend off the couch, shouting,
"What good are you if you can't even find me some food? Go see if there's anything left in the kitchen."
I watched as they rummaged around, finding only empty snack wrappers and garbage bags. Finally, out of desperation, they drank plain water to curb their hunger. As they sat there looking miserable, I muttered to myself, "Enjoy that pure water while it lasts. Soon you'll know how luxurious even that is." And Susan turned to the pretty boy beside him, murmuring something into his ear.
"I can't stand this anymore. I'm starving, and it's only going to get colder. You really love me? Come with me."
And with that, the two of them slipped out into the snowy night, searching for supplies. The white-faced guy crept up to a house, glancing around to ensure no one was nearby, then motioned to Sushan, signaling he'd chosen this house.
Is this place yours?
There must be loads of food inside.
He muttered, noticing the snack bags piled at the door. "Hang tight, baby, while I pick the lock." With that, he got to work, slipping the lock open. Inside, the resident was watching a movie, completely unaware. In moments, they barged in and, without warning, tied him up.
"Hey, look at this little guy."
The white-faced man exclaimed, eyeing their captive's stash.
"This place has enough food for days. Let's fry up something nice. No need to save anything now."
With that, they rummaged through his supplies, greedily helping themselves. They followed the same pattern, hitting a few more houses over the next couple of hours, until I saw their figures on the surveillance footage. Quickly, I locked up our doors. A glance revealed they were carrying several large bags stuffed with snacks. They must have been starving. They wolfed down onions, as if they were treats. When I looked closer, I saw cuts and bruises on their faces and blood at the corners of their mouths. It seemed they'd gotten into a fight while looting. Reflecting on this scene, I realized that some events from my past life had started shifting because of the changes I'd made. In that life, around the same time, they hadn't found any food, had nearly starved. Just thinking back to that despair brought on a splitting headache. Suddenly, my WeChat began buzzing with furious messages.
"Those animals. I was at home watching a horror movie when two guys broke in, tied me up, and stole all my food. How am I supposed to survive now? The nerve of them. Two men stormed in and tied me up without a word. Didn't even let me pull my pants up."
The message thread exploded with others venting similar frustrations. One after another, victims recounted their anger and helplessness. Each story reminded people of the lurking desperation within, the primal instincts that surfaced when they were hungry, cold, and unable to see a way out. When lives hung in the balance, morality often took a back seat. The snow had been relentless for days, piling nearly 2 meters high, with temperatures plummeting to -20 degrees Celsius. Despite my mother's comforting meals, the days grew longer in the monotony of waiting. Then, the quiet was broken by a knock on our door.
"Thomas, open up."
A familiar voice called out. It was my bodyguard, alongside the village chief of Kaishu village. I opened the door, and the village chief smiled warmly.
"It's cozy here. Not bad at all, Thomas."
Village chief, to what do I owe this visit? I asked politely, but with a hint of curiosity. The chief's eyes fell on me.
You've grown, kid. Remember when you were just a little one coming over to my place?
His expression turned serious.
Thomas, we're here because of the food situation. The heavy snow has left the whole village low on supplies. No one's stocked up properly. Folks are running out. So we decided to pool together all the remaining food in the village and keep it at my place. This way, I can manage it to ensure everyone survives through this tough season.
The request wasn't entirely unexpected, but I felt a pang of resistance. Village chief, I understand everyone's plight, I began carefully, but this food is my family's hard-earned supply. Handing it over isn't easy. Besides, I'm not sure it would even be enough to support my family alone, let alone the whole village. Chief's face fell slightly, but he persisted.
At a time like this, we must come together. We all saw how much your family prepared before the snowstorm hit. Rural families like yours must have stockpiles, right?
My father spoke up then, his tone calm but firm.
Chief, let's be clear. Just because we're cautious and prepared doesn't mean we have endless supplies. This food won't last forever, especially not if we're expected to share it with everyone.
For a moment, the chief looked uncertain.
I see.
He muttered, glancing away before adding quietly,
Did you happen to sell any of it? Well,
the chief stammered.
Word around town is that in Huacheng they're buying up food at 10 times the usual price. Thought maybe...
His voice trailed off, a hint of desperation in his tone. The villagers quickly collected everything in the field and sold it, thinking it was just ordinary heavy snow. He even included the grain stored at home. After selling everything, I didn't know what to say. My mind was blank. Thousands of words formed into a single stupid sentence. And I said, the village chief told the truth. In fact, my family has no food. Those who say my family has food are just spreading rumors. Didn't the snow stop before? We sold everything in the village. Who would have thought it would snow again? My dad looked at me, lying without blushing, and gave me a thumbs up. Based on his years of experience, I think he suspected I was lying. Please ask me to be super brave, I thought. I'm the best, Kaisu-kun. He has been a cunning person for so many years. How could he try to deceive me without a hint of doubt? I said again, if you don't believe me, come and see for yourself. Led him to the warehouse a few days before. After checking Susan's surveillance, I had immediately put our stored food away, fearing thieves would eventually catch on to our stash. We weren't afraid of thieves, but of being repeatedly targeted. I was ready to stash it all away. My dad had asked Liu to make a threat.
See, our own home is stuffed full of supplies. We really can't spare anything, right?
The village chief looked around and said,
That's not all he has in his house. We saw the entrance, but not the exit. Does his house have a cellar? Well, how much do you think your house can hold with just this little food? Since you can't afford to contribute, your family won't have a share in the next distribution, so there's no need to worry about it.
He eyed us suspiciously before raising his feet and walking out. After he left, my dad said meaningfully,
I have a hunch he might have seen something. From now on, keep the doors and windows closed. If someone knocks, try not to answer.
The temperature dropped sharply the next day, reaching minus 50 degrees. Even with the heater going, we couldn't keep the room warm enough. We had to rely on electric blankets, thermal underwear, thick home clothes, and hot tea to stay somewhat comfortable. Then, we received more bad news. A power outage. The internet was also down, isolating us completely from the outside world. To make matters worse, the solar power panels we'd installed weren't helping much. No matter how steeply we angled them, the snow covered half of each panel, and the sky was too cloudy for them to capture sunlight. Fortunately, my dad had prepared 5 large batteries and more than 10 high-capacity power banks, which we'd charged in advance, so we weren't in immediate trouble. Luckily, our pellet stove didn't require electricity. I thought that we could all sleep in one room at night to stay warmer, but lying on the floor was too cold, and my dad's loud snoring drove me back to my own bed. The freezing days dampened everyone's spirits. We barely touched the poker cards that we used to play with often. I saw my dad holding 2 dusty objects in his hands, a radio and a telescope. After fiddling with the radio for a while, he finally picked up a signal. A reassuring voice announced,
Please don't worry. Don't panic. Don't give up hope. You must actively work to save yourselves. The circuit issues are being addressed, and supplies are gradually being distributed during repairs. Hearing the voice from the outside world helped us relax. Life didn't feel as hard as it had a moment before. My mom made spicy barbecue jerky. I chewed on it while reading comic books. When I got tired, I took a bite of the freshly steamed glutinous rice and bean buns from the pot. They were sticky and sweet, warming us from the inside out. This feeling was so cool. When I got tired of looking through the window, I took out my binoculars and scanned the distance outside. Although the landscape remained unchanged, blanketed in white, every glance made my heart feel as though it was soaring beyond the confines of our home. One night, around 2 a.m., my peaceful life was shattered. Deep in sleep, I was suddenly woken by faint sounds. 2 figures were sneaking around outside.
Oh, brother, get up quickly. I'm sorry to crush you, but keep your voice down.
What kind of look are you giving me? It's not the first time you've come here to steal. Aren't you more experienced than this?
Hey, don't talk nonsense. We're here to find out where he hid his food. Why are you acting like it's a big deal?
Brother, why are we helping this old man anyway? Sure, he's the village chief, but he's also known as the jade-faced King Kaishu of Kaishu Village. First, helping him isn't really worth it for us. Second, we can grab a few things for ourselves.
Yeah, his family is easy to target. 2 of them are too old to fight, and the 3rd is just a kid. I'm telling you, we're gonna clean them out.
Stop talking and focus. Is there any place over there where we can get in?
It's locked from the inside, and it looks like they've recently reinforced it. Breaking it would be too loud.
Alright, this is our last shot. If it doesn't work, we'll have to find someone who knows how to pick locks.
Just then, the younger thief managed to jimmy the window open.
Got it, brother. Looks like I'll be getting those chicken legs you promised.
Don't get too happy yet. Get inside. It's freezing out here.
Once they were inside, the older thief mumbled, "This house is pretty warm. I almost don't want to leave."
Shush, be quiet. Let's split up and search. You go left, I'll go right. Let's check if they have a cellar or something,
said the younger thief. Moving stealthily, they crept around the house. One searched the bathroom while the other rummaged in the storage room, both hoping to uncover a stash of food. But just as he stepped forward, he accidentally kicked something familiar that rolled to his feet with a loud bang. Startled, he froze as a loud clap sound from outside, followed by the noise of someone inside the house. I bolted upright, heart racing, realizing we had intruders. I quickly left my bedroom, and as I entered the living room, I spotted one of the thieves rifling through our belongings. I shouted, and he spun around, looking shocked before smirking at me. His expression showed he wasn't worried about facing me alone, which irritated me. Without hesitation, I grabbed a knife from a nearby table and charged at him, shouting, "Don't come any closer. I know martial arts." The commotion woke my parents, who came rushing into the living room. I quickly explained the situation to them. My dad, a fiery-tempered man, didn't hesitate. He stormed toward the thief like a tornado. Back in his younger days, he'd been the runner-up in the Kaishu village tournament, and his strength showed. Seeing the fierce look on my dad's face, the thief panicked. "Old Deng, wait, I'll be back," he yelled, signaling his partner. The two thieves quickly made for the toilet window, their escape route. "Second brother, where are you? Let's go," one called out as they scrambled out. Once they were gone, I surveyed the house with my dad to see how they'd gotten in. We discovered that we'd forgotten to lock the toilet window, allowing the intruders to slip inside. Since we didn't have enough plastic sheets to cover every window, we immediately secured the ones we could, hoping it would prevent any further break-ins. My dad then brought some wooden boards to seal the windows and prevent the cold wind from blowing in. It was a solid fix. When we got back to the bedroom, I found my mom checking Brother Dao to see if he was injured. "Is Brother Dao hurt?" I asked. She shook her head.
Just a little scratch on the corner of his mouth. Everything else is fine.
I looked at Brother Dao, who didn't seem to feel any pain at all. He stuck out his tongue and grinned with pride. I couldn't help but laugh and gave his head a little pat. "You're getting a piece of dried meat tonight, buddy. You really pulled through for us." Brother Dao wagged his tail happily, and I added, "I'll make you an extra treat tomorrow as a reward." That night, none of us slept much, so we just dozed on the sofa until dawn. As soon as it was light, Mom got up and made some bone soup for Brother Dao to help him recover. My dad and I took out the binoculars to carefully observe any signs of the robbers returning. From what we could see, the two thieves seemed to have come from outside the village. There were tracks in the snow on the second-floor balcony where they had climbed up to get inside through an unlocked window. "Dad, I think these two thieves have something to do with the village chief," I said thoughtfully. "They didn't take anything. It looked like they were searching for something specific, especially after the village chief visited us." My dad nodded, frowning.
"It does seem too coincidental, but even if they're searching, they won't find anything. Still, we have to be careful."
After a few moments, my dad's eyes lit up. He ran to the warehouse and came back with over 30 large mouse traps, which were originally used for our orchard.
"These traps are strong,"
he said with a grin, setting them up around the house.
"They'll be useful now."
"Dad, are you sure they'll work?" I asked, watching him arrange them.
"As long as the snow doesn't get too deep, they'll do the trick. If it does, we can always reset them. Let's see if they dare to come back now."
That evening, as we sat down to enjoy Mom's bone soup, something surprising happened. As we were indulging in the delicious broth, the lights in the house suddenly flickered, and then the entire room lit up. My dad was the first to react, shouting,
"Quick, grab the batteries and power banks. Let's charge everything while we have power."
We all jumped into action, plugging in every charger we had. Watching all the devices power up, I felt a huge sense of relief. I turned on my phone, and the screen lit up to reveal the familiar desktop. I checked the Wi-Fi, and to my surprise, the network had been restored as well. I wondered if our surveillance cameras had been recording during the power outage. I checked, and it turned out the battery-powered cameras had still been working and were now transmitting stored footage. I clicked on the video feed and skipped it a few days ago, just to see if there was anything unusual. Sure enough, the footage showed a recent argument between Susan and a man I didn't recognize. They were having a heated exchange, and it quickly turned into a physical fight. Susan's voice rang out.
"I'm so done with this life, you useless fool. Why did I ever fall in love with you?
Susan, all you do is eat the food I risk my neck to steal. What right do you have to judge me? You eat more than I do, and you have the nerve to call me a waste?
Oh, please. You're a joke. You're the one who messed things up and you think I don't know about you and that girl from Nov 438.
Why are you so eager to kick me aside and run to him? It's because everyone's on guard against us now. You can't get anything from me anymore, so I've lost my value to you, huh?
He laughed darkly. Hearing this, Susan grew furious and launched at him again, and after another heated fight, she stormed out. Curious, I turned on the surveillance to keep tabs on them. Since the power outage, the pretty boy's air conditioner had become nothing more than decoration, and he had resorted to piling on layers of clothing. So many, in fact, he looked like a bundled-up mound. It almost resembled a man-made tomb, unmoving for long periods. Just when I thought he might have passed out, his hand slowly emerged from the layers to search for the air conditioner remote. Watching from my charged phone, I was shocked to see him barely hanging on. He shoved something white into his mouth, piece by piece. A closer look showed he was eating silk from his quilt. He'd been surviving on quilt silk. Judging by his desperate state, he didn't have much time left. Thinking of what he and Susan had done to me in my previous life, an idea flashed through my mind. I decided to call him. The pretty boy declined my first call, but I persisted until he finally answered.
What do you want?
He growled. When the video call connected, his eyes widened, seeing my face full of health and color. "Hit you," I said, smirking. "Doesn't look like you're having the best time."
If you're here just to mock me, I'm hanging up.
He replied angrily. "Hold on," I said with feigned sympathy. "You won't last much longer like this, will you? I told you before that Susan wasn't a good person. Not only did she betray me, but she's abandoned you now too. She's out there enjoying herself while you're stuck here starving. All the effort you put in for her, and she's left you with nothing." His face darkened as my words sank in, and I pressed on. "You didn't get any share of the winnings. She's off eating and living well while you're withering away, stuck here. Are you really okay with that?" A flash of anger flickered in his eyes, then a twisted smile appeared on his face as my words took hold. With that, I ended the call, leaving him to let his bitterness fester. In my past life, this man had been part of my suffering, robbing me of food, forcing me out to scavenge for supplies, and even supporting Susan's cruelty. Switching back to the surveillance feed, I watched as the pretty boy tore himself free from his pile of clothing and started smashing everything in sight. He stormed from the bedroom to the living room in a frenzy, throwing things left and right until he finally collapsed on the sofa, exhausted. After a moment, he pulled out his phone and made a call. Unsurprisingly, he called Susan. She didn't answer at first, but after repeated attempts, she finally picked up. Shortly after, he grabbed a weapon and went outside. A short time later, he returned, dragging Susan forcefully into the house. He threw her down and began yelling, his voice full of rage.
"You ungrateful wretch. I fed you, took care of you, and this is how you repay me? Off enjoying yourself while I'm here starving."
Susan, once defiant and strong, now looked small and helpless under his fury. Despite her situation, she managed to retort,
"Why should I starve with you when you can't even take care of yourself? I don't owe you anything. If I want to leave you, I will."
This only made him angrier, and he lunged at her. They grappled violently, but he was too weak from lack of food, and soon he was struggling. Susan, seeing her chance, quickly pushed him off and made a dash for the door. The two fought on, but with the pretty boy's strength waning, it was clear he couldn't hold her back much longer. He continued fumbling around him until his hand found an axe. He gripped it tightly, and with a look of grim determination, swung it down onto Susan's head. She collapsed to the floor instantly. Watching her lay motionless, the white-faced man trembled in anticipation. He shook her body a few more times to make sure she was truly still. Then, with a look of twisted satisfaction, like a starving person seeing food, his expression shifted. Looking at Susan lying lifeless on the ground, I paused. Was I happy? Not exactly. Nor was I sad. I had no sense of sorrow or regret. In truth, I felt an odd gratitude, grateful that life had given me a second chance, a chance to rewrite my story, to protect myself and my family. Finally, I took a deep breath, centered myself, and left the bedroom, just in time for dinner. At the table, I told my parents what had transpired. My dad listened quietly, a knowing smile on his face. Without saying much, he got up, went to his cabinet, and brought out his best wine. As a family, we raised our glasses, toasting our survival, our fresh start, and our newfound strength. We celebrated the real reunion of our family, freed from past threats. With Susan's presence now erased, it felt as though a whole chapter of my life had been closed. Clicking off the surveillance feed was like wiping away a painful world. I redirected my focus to the ongoing natural disaster that had engulfed us all. It had been over a month since the relentless blizzards began, and the snowstorm showed no sign of slowing. Starvation and freezing became the fate of many, and yet, the government continued to airdrop supplies and work tirelessly to restore communication lines. Even with uncertainty about when or if the storm would end, the authorities held on to hope for everyone. Power outages and internet blackouts became regular occurrences. We relied on the radio, which kept our spirits up daily. Occasionally people tried to scavenge from our home but left empty-handed, injured by the traps we had set around the property. After a few failed attempts, no one tried again. Almost a year passed, during which the temperature plummeted to minus 70 degrees Celsius. The snow piled up, almost completely covering the house, but thanks to my dad's renovations, the structure held. Whenever the snow grew too deep, we would shovel it away to keep it from burying us entirely. Then, one quiet night, the storm stopped. At first, everyone feared it was just a temporary break, but soon the sun emerged, piercing through layers of fog and frost. The nightmare had ended. Although this disaster took many lives, the government's continuous airdrops and emergency measures helped countless people survive. When the community began to recover, my father and I volunteered for support work, helping others dig out from the snow and rebuild. Life gradually returned to normal. After things settled, I decided to visit my old home. Walking through the desolate neighborhood brought a wave of memories. The once lively community was now hushed and haunting. Inside, I found only remnants of the past, a disordered, abandoned home, and, on the floor, the shriveled corpse of the pretty boy. I carefully searched the place and found Susan's ID. I also recovered the surveillance footage, forwarding it to the authorities with specific footage showing the pretty boy's violent actions. Later, I went to the Civil Affairs Bureau to revoke the divorce application and completed the paperwork for her death certificate. With that, I inherited the squandered bonus of over $10 million and used it to pay off outstanding debts. When everything was in order, I returned to my parents' home. They greeted me with smiles, arms open wide, saying,
"Welcome home.